how many years have I been saying we have to stop institutional buying? It's not just so people can access home ownership more because there's more properties available on the market or more inventory. The real reason behind non-institutional buying is the opportunity for that asset to create wealth in a variety of ways. And what I mean by that is, if BlackRock buys 100,000 homes, okay, and they rent out those 100,000 homes for the next 30, 40 years, what that means is that's another home that will not get a remodel, that will only have capital invested in it when it's necessary, not because of a want from an end user. End users that buy houses, they fix them up, they make them their own, they enhance the landscaping, they get new cabinets over time. When you buy a home, you take care of your home. Investors don't do that. But the real thing when I talk about the churn of revenue with that asset, it's not about the person, it's about the asset. Over the course of 30 years, that home will never be introduced to the market again. And if not even longer, who knows? But over that course of time, that asset sits there and it's a dead asset for the economy. And it's a dead asset for the economy because if an end user owned that home, not only will they put money into that home, but they're gonna refinance that home multiple times within the next 15, 20 years. Every time you refinance your property and you wanna maybe pull cash out of that property, you put it into the economy. But the amount of revenue that comes from each refinance, the lender, the title company, the appraiser, you as a consumer pulling out $50,000, $100,000 to pay off credit card debt, to put it in savings, to pay for your kids' college. If that asset is tied up from institutional investors, you can't unlock that wealth. So all it is tied up wealth on a balance sheet for investors that have hundreds of thousands of homes that Americans can't access, or companies that have the ability to utilize that asset to earn revenue. It's a dead asset for America.
How do we stop it?
You don't allow it. I had a couple ideas. So I prefer to stop it like they're going to do. Apparently they're going to do at least. But if you weren't going to stop it, I had several thoughts. One of the things I was thinking about was from a standpoint of unloading inventory. So how do we get large institutional investors to release inventory to the public and get it off their balance sheet? One, you have to give them a reason to do it. And they're not going to release an asset that if their basis on the home is $200,000 and they're making $30,000 a year, they're not going to release that they got a 15% return on that asset, right? That wouldn't make sense. But what I was potentially thinking about was give them a tax incentive. For example, if you own 100,000 homes, if you off a certain percentage of your portfolio every year, say you sell at least 8 to 10% of your portfolio a year to end users, you will get a subsidy on what would be the capital gains on that asset. So instead of paying 25% in capital gains or whatever, it'd be 22%, maybe you don't pay capital gains. Because if you think about it, that asset going, so as long as you free up a certain percentage, you won't have to pay tax on your gains for that house. Now people would think, that's crazy. Think about this. That home itself being to an end user will yield way more money into the economy than worrying about collecting the tax from the sale of proceeds on that home. Or maybe you cut it in half. But if we gave institutional investors the ability to have a reason to sell a portfolio and a certain amount of the portfolio, we could introduce more inventory to the marketplace and get more people to have home ownership as long as it's sold to an end user, maybe a first-time home buyer only. Like, there's ways that we can free up the inventory that they're currently hoarding. Like, it's one thing to put a stop to it now, but it's another thing to get them to release inventory so more people can have inventory to buy. Another thing that I was a big advocate of is people are talking about potentially using a 401k. Well, you could always use part of your 401k funds to pay for a down payment, but not taxing that. I was also considering, well, isn't my Social Security that I paid in my money? Don't I eventually get that money at a certain period of my life as an annuity? If I've paid in a certain amount of dollars into Social Security and we want to give people leverage to go buy property in terms of getting them a down payment, well, allow me to borrow against my Social Security. It's my money. Why not? Because let's say you have 80 grand sitting in your Social Security account that you gotta wait another 15 years before you can tap into. Unless you take early Social Security, but then you get screwed. Let me borrow 50% of my Social Security as long as I use it to buy a home. What a great thing for the economy, what a great thing for me. I would rather own a home with my Social Security funds and have it sit there for the next X amount of years and only be able to draw from it withdraw from it annually at a certain amount because that's supposed to be my lifeline of life. My lifeline of life will be the appreciation of the home I got to buy because of my Social Security. So I think there's things that can be done to get this thing moving, but we have to get more people into houses. It's the only way for people to earn real wealth out there.